Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. My name's Alex. Happy Tuesday. My name's Alex, and we're joining you guys from Cleveland and Topeka. So, thank you guys for joining today. I was just reminded that we are sold out of our London Paris trip in 2026. So, if you watched last week, Betsy gave a presentation on everything that's expected for that trip, the itinerary, all the fun things we have planned for our first ever Paris London adventure both together. So that is sold out, but we are taking a wait list. So if anyone is interested, you can join the events wait list on the website. Maybe we can link to that in the chat, or you can just email me and we can add you to the wait list. So thank you everyone for joining, and that was such a fun live stream. I know we had our Liberty of London sale last week too, and we do still have Sicily available and open as an event, so you can check out more about Sicily, and we'll do a live stream a little bit more on that later on. But today is all about Linda, and she's wearing a shirt that I made years ago, and it's all about cowls, which I admit I don't wear a lot of, but we're talking all about adding or taking away cowls today, which is something we actually do quite often.
That is true. Well, there are reasons to have cowls and there are reasons not to. To me, it is kind of a winter thing where you feel a little bit warmer. You can wear a sweater over it or a coat over it and kind of, work with your cowl and get a little bit of warmth. I think of Kathy Davis when I think about cowls. She likes to have something around her neck. I think she finds it comfortable and more attractive for her. So those are a couple of reasons, but then of course there are reasons not to have them. And that is when you want to feel cooler and when you want to wear maybe an important piece of jewelry that doesn't quite work around fabric or a cowl. So, you can go either way, and whenever I put something on that has some sort of a cowl-like neck, I do find that I am more comfortable and feel a little bit warmer, which for whatever reason these days I seem to be on the cool side of things. I've been through my hot phase and now I'm in my cool phase. So having a cowl feels pretty good. But you're not there yet, Alex, right?
I guess not.
Do you wear turtlenecks?
They have to be the right kind of turtleneck, but
Yeah.
it's possible, but it's not really a go-to option. I'm not even really a scarf person either.
Yeah.
So.
Scarves kind of come and go, and shapes of scarves come and go. I have found I'm a scarf person, but usually only with a coat. And believe it or not, it's more about protecting the collar and the neckline of a coat so I don't have to dry clean it so often. It's a lot about that, but I get a lot of compliments on a scarf when I do wear it with a coat. But I'm not one to wear a scarf just with a t-shirt or a top or something like that. It's more with a coat, I guess. Yeah, I've noticed that scarves are either giant, more like wraps, and you can spend a lot of money for those if you're really into it. Or I saw Erin the other day wearing a small scarf, which I used to wear probably in college, where it was just a single knot little scarf by Vera or whatever name that was. So they do come and go. I've toyed with the idea of making something out of all of my old square scarves, but I've never gotten around to it. But that'd be a great project, like our Eureka top that's pieced that we've done, and we've put together kits for that. That'd be a great resource, is your scarf drawer, because that's one thing. For whatever reason, I kept those. I threw away all my belts, but I kept my scarves. So
Nice. Well, I don't have anything else to say necessarily.
okay.
So on to you.
All right. Well, I have a few, some notions that I want to show you. Uh, I don't know if we've talked about them or not. Maybe we have. It's been a long time. But I've kind of changed what I use for shears and my rotary cutter. So we have these new shears. And I'm assuming you all know the difference between shears and scissors. I didn't know that for a long time, so I'm just going to say it anyway. So these are shears because the handles are different sizes and kind of stacked, and this is essentially flat. Not quite, but that's the idea. So that when you're cutting, the blades are on the table for the most part. So these are shears that we get from a company in Canada. It's a family-owned business. They make their own shears. And I'm crazy about these. These have a little bit of a soft, it's not cushy, but it's a softer handle, kind of a rubberized metal. And these are 9-inch, which is what I like. And I've switched to these. I love them. They're sharp, they're lightweight, they work well. They don't hurt my fingers. So check those out. It's part of a special edition of all black. The same company makes these craft scissors, which I use for fabric, but I also use them for my crafts in colors. This is Alex's favorite color. Do you have a pair of these, Alex?
I don't. I had to refrain myself from taking one from the office today.
Well, Christmas is coming, so maybe. Anyway, these are not 9 inches. They are 8 inches, I believe. They are shears. You know, scissors have the handles that are the same size, and they take up more lower space. But these are shears. And again, the same materials, just fun and a little less expensive, I think. They're called roses. And then for rotary cutter, I've switched to this one. Now I have to say, I'm someone who buys a new rotary cutter every once in a while when it's kind of fun. You know, I don't buy a yellow one anymore. I buy a turquoise one or a pink one or a black one. And this is the rotary cutter by the same company. And it also comes with black blades. And I just think it's cool. You know, there's no other reason to have it except it's cool. So we've got all of this and it's on sale this week. All 3 of these. I hope I'm right about that, Betsy.
Weren't you just telling me that one of your least favorite sewing tasks is changing your rotary cutter blade?
Yes. Yeah, these are easy. It's a very unique system of installing them. See if I get it the right angle here. So it's very protected. The blade is very protected, which some of mine are not. And I do find that I nick myself every once in a while, but I don't with these. But yes, I don't like to, there are various things about sewing that I don't like to do, and changing blades is one of them. And cutting out is one of them. So if I have cool tools, you know, I'm more likely to want to cut out. I need to hire a cutting out person. I don't know. I don't like to hem either. Let's see, what else don't I like to do? There's a few things along the way. Okay, so today we're going to talk about these cowls. And what started this was Betsy remembered the garment that's on this dress form. Which Erin and I had completely forgotten about. I don't know if anybody knows what this is. We don't talk about it very much, but it's called the Odette. And it's basically a t-shirt. You know, if you go through our regimen of clothes, we have a lot of t-shirts, and you would have to include this one. But it is interesting. It has all the t-shirt details and elements, but it has a couple of special things too. For instance, there is a dart, a bust dart. On the other side, there's no bust dart, but there is a princess line. So if you're making bust adjustments to t-shirts, you're going to do two different kinds of things. One for a curved seam and one for a dart. It has a ready-to-wear binding, which is what we call this kind of binding. And it has raglan sleeves with darts for the shoulder. So there's no shoulder seam. There's a dart. So you can kind of adjust that dart to shape it to your shoulder. Some people think they can't wear raglan sleeves. There it is. There's the shoulder dart. It could be lengthened, shortened, deepened, all kinds of things to fit the profile of your shoulders better. And then, of course, it has these pieces. This is one section. This is another section, another section. Those are already in the pattern, those sections, so you're not having to make anything up. The only thing that's different about this is that it has a cowl instead of the ready-to-wear neck binding. So how do you do that? Well, you know that this neck binding already fits the neckline. And it's a rectangular pattern piece. This is, we can calculate this. If this is a 1/2 inch, we have a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch behind and a couple of seam allowances. So that is 2 1/4 inches wide. But you have figured out from either something that you have in your closet or you've measured, and you know that you want to have this at 4 inches, 4 inches on the front, 4 inches on the back, and a couple of seam allowances. So that's 9 1/4. So you're going to use the same pattern piece that's 2 1/4, and you're just simply going to make a new pattern piece that is 9 1/4. This happens to be doubled, so it's just like this. The technique is the same. It's folded in half, and then the raw edges are sewn to the raw edge of the neck. You know it's going to fit. So the fit of it is taken out of the equation. Now, let's say you're using a pretty bulky fabric and you know you don't want that doubled. You could cut that at your 4 inches plus a hem. Maybe you want 1 inch. That's 5 inches. And a seam allowance is just 5/8. So you'd cut it at 5 5/8. So you're in charge of how tall, how deep, all of that. It can be hemmed, it can be doubled. Doesn't really matter. Most of the ones that I found around here are single with hems. This is one of the few that actually happens to be doubled, but I like it because this is a very tissue weight knit. And for sure it works on this. But if this were a sweater knit, I might not want it doubled. So let's look at some other cowls. How about the one I have on? This is a little bit more unrecognizable. But you can see there's one definite element to this that defines what it is. So this is the Liberty shirt. This is the Liberty shirt. It has a round collar that can either stand up or lie down, buttons down the front, but it has those side openings, which give it a little bit of a designer detail. So you keep all of that. You find the center of the buttons, which is your center front, and that you put on the fold. And now you have a neck circumference that you can measure. You know, we had someone come in right before I was coming on here, and it distracted me just enough that I didn't get the tool that I wanted to show you. Deb, can you bring me a curve runner, please? I'm so sorry. She was an interesting gal from K-State, graduated, kind of poking around, and I got to talking to her and I didn't get everything gathered. Okay, so the easiest way to measure anything, but especially curves, is with this tool called a curve runner. And you put this on the seam allowance. You start at 0. And you just run this along the seam allowance. This is the finished measurement of the neck, and figure out the circumference of the neck opening of the Liberty. And then again, you decide how tall you want it. I don't know how much this is, maybe 6 inches. And this is doubled. So I just told you we didn't have any others that were doubled. Well, I wasn't right about that. This is doubled. So it's the height times 2 plus 2 seam allowances. Now, in order to determine the length, you may want to look this up. We have it in various tutorials, all of our knit tutorials, probably PDF and video. Betsy would know the answer to that better than me. I've forgotten. But this neck binding is 7/8 as long as the circumference. So if the circumference is 22 inches around, finished, you want to take that times 7/8, and you'll come up with something less than that, like 18 or 19 or whatever it is. So you'll take that, and that's the length of your binding, which is also the length of the cowl piece. Are there any questions about that? You want it to be shorter.
No questions about that.
No questions about that? Okay. This is an astute audience. All right. Now, let's say you want something that doesn't drape like this. Something along the lines of this drapes on the hanger, but when it's on, it's a little more like a funnel. It's not what I call a cowl. So when it's on, it stands up pretty good. And I know there are people like me. I don't really care for a turtleneck. It's I don't know, claustrophobic. So I like funnel necks. So this isn't very tall. Maybe 3 inches. It could be 2 inches. I've done some that are 2 inches. This you can make even smaller, and at the seam you can actually curve the seam so it's smaller at the top fold, so it can stand up a little bit more. You can shape it just a little bit. So this is a swing tee that normally is short sleeved, although we give you the instructions for a long sleeve. And it has this funnel neck added to it. I like this very much. And this one is doubled. Hello. Okay. I guess we double all of them, you know. For those of you who have been here, you know that we have quite a vault, and we do forget what's down there and what we've done and all that. But this is a fantastic t-shirt to wear under a vest, under another sweater. This is the kind of collar that really looks good outside of either a cardigan or even a crew neck sweater. The reason I'm thinking sweaters is I'm getting ready to go on a little vacation tomorrow, and it's going to be very cold. So I am going through my closet. I think this is going to be pulled aside. This might go in the suitcase tonight. I just remembered this, and this is the perfect thing to wear. Okay. This is pretty much the same thing, except that the funnel is a little bit shorter. This is more like 2.5 inches. Again, a swing tee though. All right, we're going to shift from swings. Is that right? Yes. And we're going to go into Alex, named for my Alex. Did you know that, Alex?
I did. Yeah, I did.
So this is the Alex top. And it has its own cowl. So you don't have to worry about it. This one is pretty extended, or like 6 inches or so. Notice the stripes. This is a two-way stretch. So the stretch is going around the neck, which is what it should on any knit. Cut it on the cross grain so it has the most stretch. So you can get it over your head. Now this has a pretty big neck circumference. If I didn't want this cowl, and for some reason, I don't think we have one without the cowl, but you could put a binding on this, but this neck hole is too big. So you would want to make this smaller. You would want to draw a new shape to this neckline. Unless you like this shape. I mean, you can get an idea of it by just tissue fitting the fronts to you and just see how wide that neck is. If it's too wide for you, then you're just going to simply come in any amount, an inch, inch and a half, whatever, all the way around. And then you're going to use this tool to measure the new circumference. Use your 7/8 fraction to figure the circumference and cut a new 2 1/4 inch neck binding. Another garment of ours that has kind of a built-in cowl is the Barcelona. I'm looking at these and thinking, why am I not taking these on my trip? I think I have kind of 2 separate wardrobes, one here, one very much smaller one at home. And I think I have to dress out of my closet. Well, that's crazy. I have a huge closet here. I got to rethink my trip. Anyway, this is a cowl that has a unique and deep shape. Now you can cut this down, but you can't eliminate it. Well, I guess you can, but that's work. Another pattern. But this doesn't have to be as tall. This is about 7 inches tall. And you can put this fold, excuse me. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, this is a fold. So this is doubled, this cowl all the way. You can change where you place the fold to make this not as tall. But this is cute. And I don't see it on people very often. My friend Kathy Miller up in Hudson, Wisconsin, made it into a dress, and it's darling. This has a drawstring on the bottom that you can either utilize or not. It is on the diagonal, so it gives it a little bit of a kick. But this is actually one of my favorites. I have made that in a sweater knit and done a single layer for the cowl, and I have bound the top of the neck. And that looks pretty good. Here's another Alex. It's solid, the color of the year, one of the brownish colors of the year. This is one of our newest. This is our Era pullover. We introduced this in So Confident this year. So if you're interested in that, you can, and you're not a member of So Confident, you can purchase that month. Anyway, this is pretty interesting. I will note one thing. You see the opening at the side, it's pretty big. Some people are sewing that up. Other people are filling it in with another piece of fabric, either the same fabric or a contrasting fabric. So there's ways to deal with the opening at the side. But the cowl is part of the front and part of the back. It's not a separate piece in this case. And there are darts. There's 2 darts that extend from shoulder to shoulder across here to give this some definition of where the cowl kind of wants to fold. This is the eTee, unless it's the swing. I think it's an eTee actually. And Erin modeled this a while back. But we added a cowl to the eTee and added a mesh skirt, so to speak. This was inspired by a garment from Eileen Fisher. Now, I don't know that this is something I would wear all the time. I would probably wear this for dress, really, kind of like the little black dress, only it'd be the little blue dress. But I would definitely consider putting a mesh fabric as a little petticoat right below the finished hem of this eTee. We have some black mesh on hand, and we have a little bit left of this mesh. So I could see this popping the bottom of maybe a black t-shirt, red t-shirt, white t-shirt. It'd be kind of a fun little 2 or 3 inch, either flat or gathered. So this is part of the sale this week, stretch mesh. It's kind of hard to say. Okay, let's move on to the Hudson. We have a lot of iterations of the Hudson. I'm not going to show you all of it. But this is the Hudson. And it has a cowl. And again, a pretty wide opening that if you're going to change this to a binding, you might want to consider closing it up a little bit. I do want to show you one technique on this that I think is kind of fun. So obviously this is a stripe. And on the bottom of the sleeves and on the bottom of the shirt, I've applied a folded piece of the stripe on the bias. So here's the fold. I've edge stitched that along the fold, and then I've lined up the 3 raw edges. So I have 3 raw edges. And I just think it makes a nice little finish at the bottom. Sleeves. And I cut the cowl on the bias as well which you don't need to do in terms of construction, but I liked the design of it better. Very lightweight tissue. Now I could have doubled it. I didn't. I hemmed it. This is about a 1¼ inch hem, finished, turned again. Feels like it's turned about a ½ inch. So that's the Hudson. Makes a great dress. This is a Hudson in a tissue weight cotton. So it's very lightweight as well. I've left all the edges raw. And because it's a jersey, it curls to the right side. Jerseys curl to the right side on the horizontal. The whole thing is constructed with just a 3-thread serge. 4 thread seemed a little heavy for this, and I use my isocord thread, which is even finer. So the seams are not bulky at all, but they're stable. Now, the one thing that I discovered in a ready-to-wear piece one time was that instead of having the seam at the center back, I've shifted it to one side, and this is the wrong side. The seam is exposed so that when you have this on, the seam is covered completely, and you don't see the seam at the back. I just thought it was kind of a fun little detail. This feels more like an underlayer to me. Cotton knits can be a little bit sticky. And so if I wore this, I'd wear it over maybe a little t-shirt or a cami or something, and it might stick, might not, I'm not sure. But for sure, I wear something over it. This is a project from my Craftsy class. I'm trying to think of the name of the class. I think it's part of my serge cover stitch fashion detail class for Craftsy. And I did things for that class I've never done before and haven't done since, but it was fun at any rate. So here's the Hudson. And you can see how big the neck is. I did not change this. I would now if I were not doing it for Craftsy. But nevertheless, I cut up the front. So it was a burnout stripe fabric. That's what it looked like, the yardage, horizontal stripe. And I simply cut the front up into 3 segments. And then I placed them on just random angles. So it's not on any grain. And this is flat locking that holds it together. It does have another sleeve. So flat locking is fun. It takes some adjustment. You have to work with your samples and get it to where you like it and all of that. But it's worth it because it's a really defined edge. But this is a Hudson without the cowl. I've made it in lace for dress over a black something. And I've made it in heavier weight as well. So this brought to mind our knotted scarf. I tried to find our stripe one because the stripe one is really interesting, but I just couldn't find it. So here's a solid one, which is fine. Erin wears this quite a bit, actually. But this looks like a basketball goal. By the time you cut these 1-inch wide strips of knit, and then you start to knot them and connect them, and it turns out to be kind of either a long necklace or a wrapped cowl. The reason I thought of that is that at our last Sew Kansas, our friend Lois had on a knit top and it had a cowl. And then she pointed out that the cowl was separate, that it wasn't an extension of the body of the garment. It was a separate tube of fabric, and it matched the t-shirt. So she had her winter version with her cowl, and she had her summer version without the cowl. And of course, I've seen that before, but I don't think about it very often. And I thought it was brilliant. It really looked great. So thank you, Lois, for that. All right, I think we have seen all the garments. So, any questions?
Someone said bless you when you sneezed. So
Thank you. I've had the sneezes lately. I'm allergic to fabric.
So with the Odette and that shoulder dart,
Yeah.
would you stop the dart right after the end of your shoulder?
Yeah. That dart right now extends to the end of the shoulder. But you can stop and start it wherever.
And there's someone that has never used a curve runner.
Uh-huh.
So where do you begin when using this tool?
So if I'm measuring a neckline, let's see. I'm going to get something to draw on, hopefully. Well, okay. Maybe I don't need that. So you have a circle, let's say, of a neck hole, and you have a center front. So you would place this this has a 0 on it, right there. You'd place that 0 on the center front. And then you'd put it on the seam allowance line, the finished line. Now, if there's not one on the pattern, it's probably good that you would draw that. You would draw 5/8 of an inch all the way around. Maybe some dots, maybe some lines. It doesn't need to be a complete circle, but it needs to be something that you can connect. So you would start with your 0, and you would trace along that circle with this wheel moving until you get back to where you started, and you figure out that that neck opening is 21.5 or whatever. But this is a roller that rolls along the tissue. You can either measure a side seam with this, you can measure a waistline with this, a neck opening, a sleeve opening. I used to use a tape measure on its edge, and that was okay, but it was probably a little bit inaccurate. This is completely accurate because you're on the seam line and you're seeing the numbers go by.
Those are all the questions.
Okay. All right. Well, we have some fabrics. We have a couple of black and white stripes, one that's black with white, one that's white with black. Those are the two behind me on the fold here. These. We have a gray and white that is the same as the black and white. We have this, which is very interesting, I think. This is like it's a little bit chunky. It's not thick, but it has a definite raised texture to it. So this has a black background, and then the white is woven in a geometric, random sort of way. There's no matching to it, in my opinion, unless you want to match some horizontals that go on, which do kind of happen. And maybe now that I look at it, I would do that for sure through the body. This is kind of a lace, but it's not open. It's not sheer. It's simply a very interesting striped texture. I might pull this off and show it to you in a minute. There's a sort of weightiness to it. Nice weight, but good recovery. It has elastic that you can actually see on the back side. And then, if you're interested in doing something like this with an insertion of some color, we have beautiful viscose knits. Some of them are French terries. This is a French terry, very lightweight. This is viscose, French terry, French terry. You can put these together texture-wise. The face side of them look exactly alike, and they're very similar in weight. They're all lightweight, even though I say French terry. But the French terry part of it is a real fine little loop. So let me show you this texture. You can see the elastic in the black part. It does look like lace, but again, it's not sheer. Oops. Well, every time a fabric falls, I think of Jean Stanley. She loves it when things go wrong for me. She just gets the biggest kick out of that.
It would be funny if we had like a little blooper reel on our live.
Yeah, that would be funny. I have a Liberty like this that I have on, out of a fabric very much like this, and I love it. I used a solid color for the binding. I think that was it, actually, just a solid for the binding. I felt like this wouldn't be that much too thick, but I wanted a thinner fabric for the binding. This has a lot of drape to it. It's just perfect for a sweatery type t-shirt. Now, have I got a deal for you? There goes. So many years ago, lost track, 10 or 12 years ago, we were doing projects for Bernina. They were doing kits. We were producing the kits for Bernina for their dealers around the world. That's how we kind of got in the kit business, actually, was the kit business for Bernina first. So we were ordering lots of yards of fabrics. I mean, lots. And because they have like 500 dealers, and all of them were part of the program. So anyway, this particular knit is the only fabric we have left from the Bernina program. And this finally has emerged because it is the color of the season. I mean, everything you look at now is brown. And of course, 10 years ago, we couldn't get rid of brown, obviously. So we've had this around a long time, but it is a beautiful knit. It is very smooth, lightweight. You can look at this and see brown. You can look at this and see a little bit of maroon, purplish. It takes on some different colors, and the two sides look a little bit different. The right side, can you see the difference between that and that? That's the difference. A little more depth of color on this one than that one. But anyway, both sides are beautiful. And while all of these fabrics behind me and a whole bunch of patterns and things are at 15% off this week, this one fabric is at 50% off. That's 50. So now is the time to grab the color. Even if you don't like this color, it goes with a lot of things. It goes with that green that I love so much. It goes with that fuchsia. It goes with the teal and the blue. You can wear it with black. just kick this color into your wardrobe, even if it's just a punch, a little bit, or you can make a solid something out of it. Either way, it would be right on. It's real wide, wider than 60, but I can't tell you exactly, but it's wide. No tag on it, but anyway, real wide, real inexpensive, real on trend.
There's another question that came through. Does cutting the cowl on the bias for stripes, for instance, affect the calculation? Does the bias cut create more stretchiness?
No, if you actually take a normal knit, and stretch it on the cross grain, and then stretch it on the bias, it'll be exactly the same. The only reason you want to cut a knit on the bias is for the design of it. If there's a stripe, a pattern, or whatever that you would prefer. But there is no need to allow for extra fabric in knits for a bias anything. There's no reason to cut knits on the bias unless you just like the design of it.
All right. I don't see any other questions. I can share the sale details.
Yeah.
So here we have our, I guess we're calling it like the plus minus cowl necks. So this is the sale this week. And so all of the patterns here are at the top. We have the Alex and Olive, the Barcelona. These are printed patterns. And then we have the eTee that comes in extended sizes. That is a PDF pattern. Then we have the Hudson, which is a PDF pattern, and our Liberty, which is both paper and PDF. Continuing on, we have the Odette and Ivy. The Odette is digital, but not yet the Ivy. And our beloved Swing Tee t-shirt is digital. The knotted scarf pattern, I can't remember if Linda mentioned this, but you need 60 inches, or sorry, for 60-inch wide fabric, you need half a yard. For an 45-inch wide fabric, you need a yard and a quarter, or a yard and a half. I think a yard and a half. So that's just it would make a great gift. It's an easy kind of afternoon project with no sewing involved with the knotted scarf, just cutting lots of strips and tying them into knots. Then we have a couple tutorials on sale. So some of the garments that Linda showed, the one she's actually wearing, the Liberty knit top, this is a download tutorial that you guys can grab to learn how to make the Liberty into this variation. And then the same with the eTee turtleneck. This is a mesh blocked eTee that you saw Linda holding. So this tutorial will tell you all about how to work with mesh fabric and how to change the pattern to make this variation. Also, you have the Series 7 So Confident. This has what in it? I think it has I didn't double check. What does this have in it? Maybe Betsy can send me a message, but there's a tutorial for you. And then
it has the eTee with the funnel neck, or the swing tee with the funnel neck and the long sleeves.
Ah, got it. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. And then all the fabrics. So Linda showed off tons of fabrics on the back wall, so you guys can click on these images, get more information, get close-ups, get faraway shots, and get to know these. The one that is 50% off is, which one is it? I saw it earlier. Here, the Jersey viscose spandex in chocolate. So that's the 50% off fabric. And then below that are all the notions Linda mentioned earlier in the show. So these notions are on sale, and you can shop them here.
And don't forget to add a curve runner to your notions box.
I don't see any other questions.
Okay.
So that's all I have.
All righty. Well, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Betsy. And thank you, everybody, for joining us.